Illustrators Alliance, and I'm Kim Harris. Normally KJ Waters would be up here, and she's a much more polished public speaker than I am. So this is like why I'm a writer, because if I was writing this, then I would have edited out a whole bunch of stuff. But you get what you get, I guess. Here we are. If you would be interested in donating one of your books for the raffle that we will be having next week at the Love Book Festival, then bring that to the table and we will raffle it off. We'll include it with the basket. We're also giving away a Fire HD Plus e-reader and other prizes. So that's one of the things that we're going to be having in the book festival. There's tons of other stuff. We have great speakers, great presentations, so please come. Now, our November meeting is a BYOB meeting. Bring your own buddy. So members can bring a visitor for free next month, November 12th. It's a great time to bring a visitor too, because our speaker is going to be Jody Thomas, who is a USA Today and New York Times best-selling author. So she's very impressive and she's very inspiring and she's got exciting new things in the works. So it's a great time to bring a buddy. Another event that I wanted to let y'all know about, I'm pointing that way, that's not the one, that's the one. Our neighbors to the north, our sister group to the north in Amarillo, Texas High Plains Writers, are celebrating their centennial, 100 years of existence, which actually I think happened in 2020, but they couldn't celebrate because everything was shut down. So they're finally being able to commemorate that momentous occasion. And I think that they are the longest constantly existing writers group in the country. So Texas High Plains Writers Centennial Celebration is November 5th from noon to 4 p.m. at the Barfield Hotel Speakeasy in Amarillo. So I'm sure some of us will be going, so if you're interested, let me know or let somebody else know, and maybe we can get a group to go up together. It doesn't start till noon, so it's plenty of time to get up there, and it doesn't conflict with our meeting, so we should go. It'll be fun and we'll support her. November 10th, for our December meeting, we are having a holiday party. That's also BYOB, bring your own buddy. We are going to have another mystery game. We had one last year, and it was a big hit. And so we're going to do that again with a different mystery, and it's going to be ugly Christmas sweater themed mystery. So come prepared to wear your ugly Christmas sweater and have fun. Now next, Susan, if you will come up here, we're going to present the winners of our Anthology contest. A few months ago, we started a contest for short stories for our anthology. The theme was Never Say Never, and here's a copy and a pretty already buttoned out. So this will be for sale next week at the book festival. So if you want a copy of it, then come by and pick one up. And here's the mock-up of it. And so there are certificates that we'll have to mail out later, but we brought the most important thing, which was the cash prizes. So for third place is Smoke by B.K. Curry. Congratulations. Second place is John A. Rock for A Tale from the Rain Check Room. Woo! And the first place winner is for Dana Starr for her story Lunchtime in the Diner of Good and Evil and Everything in Between. And Dana's not here. I'm excited for y'all to get a chance to read her writing because she's very funny. So congratulations and thank you to everyone who answered. And thank you so much to KJ and to Steve Curry who worked so hard to put this thing all together. It's a lot of work to get that, y'all know how much work it is to write a book. It's just as much work when you're not doing the writing. Get it all put together and formatted and made beautiful and everything, so they did a great job. We appreciate that.
Can we buy those today too?
We cannot buy them today. We'll
next
have to
week.
wait till next week.
Okay.
But they will be available next week. And I'm sorry, I don't know how much they're going to be. But they will be X amount of dollars. Now, Now, coming up, we are going to have the November meeting. We're going to vote on new officers for 2023. There are several positions open. We need 2 more volunteers to be on the nominating committee to nominate other people. So if you don't want to serve, but you want to serve a little bit, be on the nominating committee, and then you can nominate somebody else, which is like, that's a thing that has to be done. So, Fallon Mehmet, he's not here today, but he's been the nominating committee, and he needs some help to identify. So if you would be interested in being on the nominating committee, let me know. The new directors that we need for next year, and something that KJ noted, you do not have to be an experienced writer to do this. Like, we welcome anybody who's willing to work. So, and it's not even like a lot of work. It's a little bit of work. It is something, but it's not a lot. So the positions that we have open, we need president-elect. Normally, the other positions are 2-year positions, but for president, you serve 1 year as president-elect and 1 year as president. So you have a year of experience before you're expected to leave. So we need president-elect. We need someone to do the contest and anthology, what we just talked about. We need someone for social media and publicity, a membership chair, newsletter, technical support, events, and website management. So those are all the open positions for 2023. So if you are interested, please let me know. We would love to have you. And I have just one more thing. At the book festival next week, Caprock is Caprock is hosting writing workshops for free. So the book festival is a free event. The workshops are a free event. We've gathered some of the best talent around, providing amazing workshops from Dorinda Jones, Laura Drake, Natalie Bright, J.J. Chan Henderson, who I heard speak several years ago. She was really great. And Rip Tram. So she says see below for times that they're not in here. So anyway, those are going to be at the book festival. Does anybody else have any other? Yes, ma'am.
Kim, where is the book festival for the newbies here?
So, thank you so much. Whenever you edit this later, make sure that this is right. Okay. The book festival is going to be at the Mahon Library. Is it at the Mahon Library? Is it the Mahon Library? It is at the Mahon Library, which is downtown, right across the street from Luca and the Buddy Hall Learning Center. So it's in that area. There is a prologue party on Friday night, and you have to buy a ticket for that, or if you're one of the authors who bought a book, you get a free ticket to the prologue party. That's at Luca. And then Saturday and Sunday at Mahon Library for the full book festival.
Will there be horses this year?
I'm sorry?
Will there be horses this year?
I don't know. There could be a surprise horse. Will be less surprise. Last year, there was an actual horse in the library, like inside the library, walking around. And it was very exciting and unusual. I don't know how he's going to top that, but maybe he'll have 2 horses. All right. Well, okay. And now to welcome our, yes, ma'am.
I have one more announcement.
Yes.
NaNoWriMo is an organization for anyone that wants to write a novel in 1 month, and it's during the month of November, and it's free to join. And we are going to have, and you join online, and they help you get organized. So if you are interested in being a member of NaNoWriMo and writing with a group of people in Lubbock, I looked a while ago online. It said there's 700 people in the Lubbock area that have been members of NaNoWriMo.
How many?
700.
Wow.
So we will have our first organizational meeting, just a fun little meet and greet at La Madeleine's on October 10th at 7 p.m.
That's Monday.
Monday, yes. And then we will meet on the 24th for kind of an organizational help you with plot or anything, any questions you have, and we're actually going to have a short write-in. And that means you just can work on your whatever topic you want to work on. And then we will give you a calendar, but we're going to meet every Monday night through November, even during the week of Thanksgiving, from 6 to 10 for a write-in there at La Madeleine's. And then we will meet every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 7 or 8 at Market Street.
Don't forget the kickoff.
That's October 10th.
No, the kickoff is.
Oh, the kickoff is at Market Street on November 31st, and it's at 9 o'clock. Because 9 o'clock in the evening. I know that sounds weird, but it's a nano tradition to start on the 31st because you can start writing technically November 1st for that 50,000 words that you want to get into your novel. So the whole point of NaNoWriMo is to help you get organized and write every day. So by the end of the month, you have a 50,000 word semi-completed novel. I have done it 5 years in a row, and I kind of skipped a year, and so I'm back. And my first 4 years, I published those novels that I wrote during NaNoWriMo. So it really was very inspirational for me. So anyway, nothing to join. We love to have you. Come and go as you please. Sign up online, look at nanowrimo.org. And NaNoWriMo, of course, stands for National Novel Writing Month. Is what and it's been around 20 years, 25 years. So anyway.
And look up Lubbock Rhymos for the Facebook site, if you want to get on the Facebook site, because people just encourage each other for that month. And
and you can join the Facebook site on Lubbock Rhymos. Just click on and we're admins there, so we'll just let you join. We'd love to have you. And it's a good place to ask questions like, what's a good poison that I can use for my main character's brother that I want to knock off.
Asking.
Yeah, very safe. Yeah, asking for a friend. And here's our poison specialist. So I mean, and hiding bodies, I can do that. So anyway, if you need it, I know we do all sorts of stuff in NaNoWriMo. So, anyway, that's all I have to say.
That's excellent. And if you've never tried NaNoWriMo, it is so much fun. Or if you've never even done a writing, I think all writers should try it at least once, because it sounds weird that you're just going to sit with a bunch of people and there's no talking. You're all just writing on your own respective projects. But there's just something about that where there's kind of some societal pressure. You're not going to be checking your email. You're not going to be looking at your phone. You're going to be focused on your writing. And I've not been able to really replicate that on my own anywhere else. And so it's an excellent way to get the words down and really, it can really start that process. And there is no risk. It's like no risk. It costs nothing to join. I have never made my 50,000 word count. I've done it several years. I've never once made that count, and no one has revoked my author card or even given me a mean look. Like it's no risk, and it's very fun. It's a lot of fun. So, NaNoWriMo, and it'll start October 31st at Market Street. Is it kickoff?
Right, that's a kickoff, but October 10th and October 24th, meet and greets and a mini writing.
Beautiful. Excellent. We'll be
At
LaMelo. Excellent.
On Quaker and AZ.
Okay. Thank you for leading.
Kingsgate Center.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, I'm going to introduce our distinguished speaker today, who was so gracious to agree to speak today. I have to confess, y'all, so KJ and I, we were planning the meetings, and we thought that Book Festival was going to conflict with this meeting, and we were trying to figure out, should we have a meeting at the Book Festival? What should we do? We're trying to kind of finagle things. And Vera is so smart that she actually looked at the calendar and said, no, it doesn't actually conflict. so she's very smart, so we're lucky to have her. A habitual border crosser between her American upbringing and Mexican heritage, Vera is a workshop facilitator, performance poet, and a teaching poet. Her poetry chapbook, Barrio Voices, was published in 2008, and her work has appeared in State of the Heart, Carolina Writers on the Places They Loved, Volume 2, Archive Ties That Bind, Cackalack, and the Empress Journal. Vera supports collaborative work, and in 2019 curated a bilingual reading. What's this? Nuevas? I should have practiced this.
You got it.
Raising Latinx Voices in South Carolina for the Deckle Edge Literary Festival. She has also been named the Jasper's Project's supper table, an array of remarkable SC women, South Carolina women, a multidisciplinary arts project honoring the women who made and continue to make South Carolina better. Additionally, Vera has teamed with the Indie Grits Festival's Visions Project 2017, presented a Chautauqua talk on, thank you, Cesar Chavez, introduced improv poetry at Read Up Greenville, and has been part of the Free Verse, Charleston Poetry Festival, and Columbia, South Carolina Rain Poetry Project. So please join me and welcome Vera. Go ahead.
Okay, would I have to put on vibrate or something? I'm actually just looking at time. It's really nice to be here, and I want to say, like, when I was hearing about novel drama, I was getting like the jitters, because this is why I do poetry. I'm lucky to be able to write 500 words or a poem that's 3 minutes. I just want to start by saying I grew up in Lubbock, Texas, in the Arna Benson area, at a time where Lubbock was going through a lot of change, so I write a lot about that. I'm a narrative poet. I'm also not what I'm going to call an academic poet. I was that kid who just wanted to get herself through Texas Tech and get the heck out of Lubbock, Texas. Sorry, Sister Isabel, but that's really what I wanted to do as a kid. And it's my sister right here. I'm glad she made it, because I know she's an overnight nurse. So I'm gonna cry now. So big hand to my sister. I didn't really. Just a little bit. I'm not an academic poet. I got a degree in television, and I worked really hard just to move on, because Lubbock in the 70s and 80s was hard. I mean, I see some of you know, it was hard for everyone. It was a town in transition. And so I was also learning from people here who were like, oh, you're not a poet. You don't know how to write form. You don't know how to rhyme. Your meter is off. And I learned later in my 20s that meter is the power of word, which is what we're going to talk about today. Today's going to be an interactive session. I'm going to read for you guys a little bit. I'm going to walk you through some interactive activities. I'm going to get you to write, because I think all of us are writers and all of us are poets, even those of us who are novelists. And so I'm just going to start with a couple points for you guys. I'm going to put my hair back up because it's really long. And I want y'all to know that I'm nervous because I've not done this. I've not done a session in person since before COVID. So I apologize if I freak out. And if I get all tense, I'm going to just claim that I'm a middle-aged woman and having a hot flash, okay? So I also used to slam. Do any of you know what slam poetry is? Okay. I helped start slam in Greenville, South Carolina, with a woman named Glennis Redmond, who just got named the Poet Laureate of Greenville, South Carolina.
Wow.
It's about damn time Greenville got one. Oh, I left Texas in 1993, and I moved to South Carolina, which is basically where I spent half my life. So we started slam. We also created a movement of being, we had the first all-woman team that competed at regionals, that placed 10th at nationals in 1997. So some of these poems date back that long ago. And so I'm just going to be quiet and read some poems for you, okay? Some off page, some on page, because like I said, it's been a while since I've done this. Mamá, ayer te vi en mi espejo. Tus ojos, tu sonrisa, tus manos. Las manos de que niñas son mías hoy, viviendo en South Carolina, lejos de tu casa. I forget que ser mexicana. Pero Mexico runs through my veins. She is on my face, Spanish y India. Yo soy mezcla de ayer y hoy. My mother's hands cooked and toiled for me. Poured her soul into birthday dinners of mole con arroz y frijoles. She'd say, muchachas, 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 vayan a la escuela, trabajan trabajos que valen la pena. Her love, the subtle words of Agustilada, that constant feed of eating gourmet with bunches glaring as she said splashes of aqua and magenta under earth-brown dishes set beside McBurglar and Grimace glassware. My mama, y'all, my mom, she was rhythm in la casa. Her palabra, holy gospel, and her shrine to La Virgen, her shrine to the Virgin, did run the verge of idol worship. Poco Santeria mixed in with a little bit of voodoo. Mama said to believe in the power of La Virgen is to believe in el poder de la mujer. Mama's hands held us, smoothed our pain through split nails and broken skin. Her calloused fingers worked every last drop of pine salt water, keeping our mill house clean. Her fingers, they kneaded pounds of flour for hours so that we'd have hot grilled tortillas at every meal. My mom, y'all, my mom, she was all those things us 5 Gómez girls did not want to be. Her mantra es así en México, así es en México, pero en America, you can be anything. And it is her American dream that robs me of Mexico, that robs me of my first tongue, misguided in the ways of a second world, that at times I don't know where I belong. How I learned English, I don't remember. How I know Spanish, well, it is in my blood like spicy salsa, las palabras de Octavio Paz. Beauty to me has always been free, that's thick brown music, samba, cumba, beguine. I hear my Mexican heart beating at night. I hear her scream. I dream of dark-haired babies, chocolate skin with deep brown eyes. I dream of peppered smells inebriating me, leading me Aztec way. Y las manos de mi mamá, that were always there wiping away fear. The hands of my mother now grow frail. Mama, is this where you meant me to be? In a world so mixed with yesterday and today that I get lost between here and there. That in the quiet of my home, lejos de ti, I play ballet folkloric y los panchos late at night. I splash green on walls and drink sarape over kitchen chair where I will have bilingual conversations with myself because, well, I miss Mexico. I saw my mother in my mirror yesterday. Her eyes, her smile, her hands. And my mama's gritos de dolores and each of your mother's dreams. They are now in our hands. So I write in Spanish and English. You guys okay with that?
Yes.
I'm just going to read a couple points. Some of them in Spanish. I write in Spanish a lot. Moved back to Texas. In South Carolina, there's a lot of Colombians, a lot of Venezuelans, and only 3 Mexicans in Greenville. The 2 Mexicans considered me Mexican because of my heritage and would want to speak English with me, and I wanted to practice my Spanish with all of them. So my Spanish is my dialect's a little different. But a lot of poems come to me in Spanish still because my mother and my father, and we spoke Spanish at home a lot. So this is called Tierra Tejana. It's a Spanish poem that I've then done into English. So I hope some of you speak Spanish, but at least that you like the rhythm of the language. So, Tierra Tejana, corre por mis venas, piripiando como cuando el aire besa las alas de una mariposa durante la promesa del verano. Tierra fuerte, tierra oscura, tierra madre, pintada con sangre de mi gente, pintada con sangre de mi gente, limpiando labores, sangre de mi gente, cruzando fronteras a la tierra de sueños. Nacida tejana, respiro con boca nueva y marcho un camino lleno de reflejos de nubes manchados con oro. Pero la sangre en mis venas, la sangre que respira, la sangre de la gente de mis padres, nunca olvidarán de dónde vengo. The land of Texas runs through my veins, pulsating like when air kisses the wings of a butterfly at the first promise of summer. Strong land, dark land, motherland, land tainted with the blood of my people, tainted with the blood of my people, slaving over fields, the blood of my people crossing fronteras into this land of dreams. Born Texan, I breathe with a new mouth and march along the road reflecting clouds stained with gold. But the blood in my veins, the blood that breathes the blood of my father's people, never forgets from where I come. So, you guys are being so quiet. If you have a question, raise your hand. Because I teach a lot of kids virtually right now. I'm going to do part of a program called Smart Arts, which is part of the Greenville County School District and Metropolitan Arts Council. And I've been a Smart Arts teaching poet now. I'm in my 22nd year. And when I told them I was moving back to Texas, they went, no, you can't. And And then my poetry tribe in South Carolina still keeps me as part of the tribe. So Greenville County may be one of the very few school districts that does virtual academy. And because of that, I'm still teaching a couple of units an academic year. And those kids who are part of virtual academy tend to be those English as a second language kids. And that part of the country, it's not necessarily being Hispanic. It's being from India. It's being Chinese. And so I think that a lot of my work, even if you're first generation American, no matter what your ethnicity is still relatable because it's still the same story, the story of adjusting, the story of wanting to belong from where you're at. So here's a poem that actually won me. I want to say congratulations to the winners, because there's nothing like earning a little bit of greenbacks, right, for your work. And I'm also a big supporter of, if you're a writer or a poet or an artist, don't do stuff for free, because it's a business, right? And back in my head, I want to write a book called The Poe Business, right? The business about poetry, and it's not about being poor. It's about adding value to the power of your work, right? So this is a poem from just thinking about going to school at Warfield Elementary, which I think is still there. It's across the street from Our Lady of Grace, about 2 blocks. Is that I'm looking at Isabel? It's probably 2 blocks from where we grew up. We grew up on Rudell Street.
I taught there.
But
I taught there in the 70s.
you did? Really? Warfield Elementary?
Yes,
Oh my gosh.
1975, 76, 77, and 78,
I was already in
and
middle.
79.
Okay. Well, I have lots of memories of Warford and spending time there, but it was when I was going to middle school then, and I'm looking at a couple of my friends from the neighborhood. Our neighborhood transitioned. You know, I grew up next door to the McMillans and the Kennedys and a couple of other families when my father moved over to work at Will's Pumps. So this is a poem called Cafeteria Food, from the point of view of a 5th grader who just longed for a couple of things. So cafeteria food. The daily nickel marked me. I'd take it from my pinpoint purse to pay for the pint of quality check milk. I carried a brown bag tattered from use and freckled by oil spot stains. They had full trays and lunch cards. My solitary bag stood tall, its mouth open, their flesh-toned trays lined tabletops. My spicy tacos permeated the air, unwrapping the reused Reynolds wrap. I looked down and wished that I were white, wish I had bologna on Wonder Bread, wish I could forsake the taste of chorizo. But I was hungry. I'd hear the kids whisper, spit. I'd think pinche gringos like Papi when he was mad at the world. The room's ordinary walls resembled the English my tongue would learn to flap. Back then, I longed for rolled R's and spoken syllables accented and topped with tildes. But in the school cafeteria, only wows and wave pools echoed. My chorizo tacos and chocolate milk learned to speak for themselves. So like I said, I was that kid who just wanted to get the heck out of Lubbock, Texas, leave it in my rearview mirror, although I think that's a different song, right? So there's some famous musicians who wanted the same thing, right? So I moved away. And as we all know, as we become older, we become very nostalgic. Our memories sometimes overwhelm us, particularly for myself. I moved away, had no family in South Carolina, had a wonderful job opportunity, so I consider myself extremely blessed to still work as a writer. I got a degree in television, writing from tech, and I've always supported myself as a writer, which mom reminded me of that once when I was 40, because I was like, I just wanted to be a poet. And she's like, but you're a writer. And she's right. I mean, she was right at the time. So this is a little poem. I have 2 more to read, and then we're going to do a little bit of writing of ourselves, for ourselves, okay? This is I'm going to do Leaving La Mesa, because I could not call it Leaving Lubbock, right? Because then I would give myself away. And this is an ode, and it's by it's following a pattern. I'm also a firm believer in poetry and or writing fiction or anything. You've got to read, write, to hone your skill. So I was reading a lot of Lawrence, I can never say his name, Ferraghetti. And he has a whole book about just writing odes to old things, right? And so I thought about my hometown. But I called it La Misa, which I think now may become like a Bedouin community of Lubbock eventually. So leaving La Misa. Let it be said, there's nothing nice about La Misa. Here, the dirt devils chase you until the dust fills your mouth. The tumbleweeds cheer as they prick your thighs and chase you down the road, propelled by the reckless wind of March, which always howls. Even at the start of spring, nothing grows in La Misa except the rust on the water tower, stoic sentinel that remembers marching band and Friday football back before the cotton gins and cattle ranches closed. Let us not forget, La Misa's dying, suffers from young people leaving, the old-timers calcifying hard like the stake plane tableau the abandoned town sits on, dried and bitter, like the first time Edward Moreno kissed me, his mouth filled with tequila, or like when I was 9 and Perry showed me love by giving me his favorite dead torn toad nestled on a bed of crammed cotton balls housed in a cracked plastic Crayola box. In all fairness, I could not wait to grow up and leave, to forget this lone place, move small town to large city to take in the stuffy air of urban life and fast-paced jobs, to look at LA's city night haze and long for what stars look like against black endless space, or how dirt dances in wind gusts, or how boys express love in strange, small ways. Are you guys tired of hearing me read?
No, never.
I'll read one more. I'll read 2 more and then we're going to start. But I may get you to go back for a reason. Any questions?
How long have you been back in Lubbock?
Not even 2 years. We officially 2 years of April 28th. I drove in and it was snowing. So,
Yeah.
yep. And Sister Isabel was just getting out of the hospital because of COVID. That was a time where I had COVID in September. She got COVID in October. Then my brother got COVID. So times are changing.
Would you say, and please be honest, has Lubbock changed from your, or do you feel like if the perception is different, do you think it's because Lubbock's changed, or you?
I think,
Or?
no, I think Lubbock's evolving. And this isn't, I'm looking around because I went to art trail yesterday with my friend Rob, and there was a guy from the city, and he's like, would you like to talk about what you like about Lubbock? And I went, oh, I'm not a good one to talk to. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, no, I mean, I moved back. But honestly, Kim, I don't, I'll share why I'm here, but I'll also say I'm not good to talk about that because I work from home. I don't go to an office, so I'm very isolated and secluded. It's been very difficult in your 50s to make friends or to go out, and some of you are nodding. It's the older you become, the more difficult it is to meet people. And we all need that human contact and that social interaction, right? But the good thing, one of the reasons I decided to move back, and I moved back, as some of you may know, are my friends, personal friends, is because we have a brother who's sick, right? And Isabel needed some help because she's been helping care for him. So I'll give another big round of applause for her. And I'll just say my brother's bipolar, schizoaffective disorder. I'm a huge ally and advocate for mental health because all of us are touched by someone who suffers from some form of mental illness. And I think it's taboo until we start talking about it as a community. Our leaders are not going to do anything to care for these people. So I'll get out that soapbox. So that's why I moved here. I did move here because I had the choice to transfer with my company. My company knew my situation. They approved my transfer through corporate. And I could have gone to Dallas, I could have gone to Albuquerque, I could have gone to San Antonio, Austin, or Houston, where we have offices. I said, I want to be near my family for this reason. And when I started looking at that, Lubbock is booming, y'all. It is growing. It is projected to be $500,000 people. I'd love $500,000. 500,000 people by, I think, the end of 2025 now. It is a hot spot. And Lubbock is, which is part of the reason I moved to Greenville, South Carolina from Austin, Texas. I was young. I could not afford to buy a house. A lot of young people stayed in Austin because they liked to party and became slackers. Or you went, I want to buy a house, I want to have a family one day. And so you go to Dallas or Houston, right? I went to Greenville, South Carolina, and bought my house when I was 28, my first house, which was an American dream, right? I wanted to be a homeowner. And that is happening to Lubbock, right? I'm energized by when I do go out of meeting young people who are late 20s. I'm going to point one out, Rob, who is hopefully going to pass his bar in a couple of weeks. Has passed his bar, just hasn't been told. But he's from San Antonio, and every time I talk to this young guy, he's like, oh no, I'm staying in Lubbock. I want to be here. So I'm excited that young people now want to be here. So those are the reasons why I'm back. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So I've been writing about my mom and my family growing up since, I've been writing since I was a kid. I've been when I say telling stories, we all tell stories. I don't mean like fantasies, but we listen to our elders and we repeat these stories. So if you have kids or grandchildren, I'd say share your history with them so that your story will live on, right? And often we don't do that, but I listened a lot as a kid. And I will be honest, we grew up in a household with lots of kids. My older sisters are all stair-step, and I really didn't talk a lot. I listened a lot and I observed, and I think as writers and poets, the key to that is observation. That's how we were able to capture story. So our dad passed in 1992, I think, and it took me almost 10, 15 years to write poems about my father. I just couldn't do it. So I'm going to read this poem, and then we're going to do some work. So this is called At the Farmer's Market. I hold one to my nose and smell the earth. And I actually took this poem and I brought proof to my friends from school that are here. I am a published poet. They're just me and I want to do this one too. This is Barrio Voices, which won the South Carolina Poetry Initiative, was one of 6 winners. They picked 6 books in 2008. And then this is a collection from Furman University. They wanted to highlight some young poets. I was 40 years old. I'm like, I'm not young. They're like, oh, you're young. Poets don't become famous till they're 70 or 80. So they got, and this was a writing group. Myself, Joel McCullough, Terry McCord, Kimberly Sims. Kimberly was part of the SLAM team, and Brian Slusher. We, and I'm looking at Adele and Joe, we started writing together. And people began to notice us because we went and did open mics and stuff. And the people in the creative writing department at Furman said, we know about you guys, kids is what we call this, and we want to put together an anthology. So they did that for us. And then this poem, I was asked by, this is a University of South Carolina Press, has 2 State of the Hearts. State of the Heart number 1 is what I call the really big people from South Carolina, like the woman who wrote the story about bees, whose name escapes me, Josephine, I forget her last name. The Secret Life of Bees, yeah. So all those really famous people are in State of the Heart. Carolina writers write about their favorite places, number 1. I'm in number 2. There's now a number 3 and then number 4. But I took a point because I was like, I can't write a short story because I'm a poet. And someone said, you have such beautiful poems. Tell the story of those poems. And so I wrote about the tomato vine, which was this farmer's market stand, because of this poem I'm about to share. And that poem is featured in the short story because honestly, I forgot it had to be like 4,000 words and I was short and the poem helped me get the page limit. There was like, you get 4 pages, you got to fill them. And I'm like, I can't. So anyway, This is a poem about my father, and it's called At the Farmer's Market. I hold one to my nose and smell the earth. And also I want to say, poetry is fiction. Because this poem starts out a line about my sister, so I'm sorry. Poetry is part fiction. It's based on truth, it can be, but it's fiction. So, at the farmer's market, I hold one to my nose and smell the earth. At 16, my sisters and I worked the fields. We'd ride with the Cavazo boys in the back of the pickup to Modesto. We got paid $30 a day to pull tomatoes, orange, red, and green, even the heirloom ones in all of their deformity. When my father started his garden, I tend to it. Water, weed, then push past the leaves to grab the fruit. Once in my palm, I'd yank it from the vine. By late summer, the heavy ones hit the ground. Their skin split, their seeds spilt. If the stink bugs had not invaded, I'd salvage them. I took tomatoes to Dad's hospital room once, where with his pocket knife, cut it open and let it bleed. Salting the flesh, I brought a slice to his lips and let him taste the earth. Okay, so I do a lot of, will you go back and slide? And go backwards. I'm sorry. Because I want to talk about what I do a lot of, and I don't know if Mathis is going to turn off the lights so the guys can see this. And I'm going to pivot today because we're going to do an exercise in the garden. That's going to be our third exercise. But I write a lot to objects and to paintings. And this is a poem, this is a piece called Caught by Luis Cruz Arceta. And he is a Cuban-American painter. He's probably, maybe in his late 60s now.
Oh.
But I also, there's a group of, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say colored, because there's a lot of Puerto Rican poets working with Pepcom. And one of our founders is Alfred Michael Weaver. And there are new types of poem forms being developed. And Weaver developed something called the bop. So bop poems are made up of 3 stanzas, where each stanza is followed by a refrain. That refrain could be a line from the Bible, it could be a line from a song, it could be, hippie smoke weed or something, but it has to be a refrain that's recognizable. And I don't know where that line came from, guys, it just came. But it has to be a line that a reader connects to. That's what the refrain is. So this poetic form that Weaver developed is an argumentative in nature, whereby the author presents a problem, talks about it, and then works toward offering a solution. So I was asked by the Greenville County Museum to be one of 3 poets who selected a piece out of an exhibit that was about protest. There's also a type of poetry, guys, called protest. I can't say that word. Protest poetry. Let's all say that 10 times, right? Protest poetry. And Latin American poets do this very well. And if you just think about what happens in Latin America, or also right now in Eastern Europe, they use protest poems to talk about condition and what's happening. So I spent 2 Saturdays studying this piece of work. I worked with a young high school poet at the time named Louisa Pinafore, who is now a student at North, where did she end up with? I'm sorry, I worked with Elena Astro, who's now a student at Yale, and she's also getting a creative writing minor. But we wrote to this piece of poetry and what it meant to us. And remember, this is an ekphrastic piece. So I want you guys to look at the painting while I read this to you. This is called Meditation on Limbo, after Luis Cruz's Acercas Cut. Swimming against currents, the indigo blue of murky waters drowns the blue, indigo blue of night. The stars guide human caravans, the asylum seekers, mothers, fathers, children, unaccompanied minors. Santo, Santo es el Señor y de universos Dios. They will cross rivers by dark, lay stacked pal and cut out gas tanks to be trafficked to chicken plants, peach fields, and Walmart. Their American dream, border detention camps and heckles of rapists, drug dealers, murdering M13s. All they seek, peace from Flaco o Ploma, escape from decades of transient country drug trade. Santo, Santo, el Señor y de universos Dios. We breathe free. We forget our immigrant fathers, forget the exodus of Moses and Sudanese refugees. We forget to dream, to speak for those caged, tired, and poor, those cornered by border walls and ice raids. We forget the humanity of those floating in limbo, risking indigo waves and night skies to step into their dreams. Santo, Santo, el Señor, y del universo es Dios. And who knows what the refrain is?
Part of the Lord's Prayer.
It is part of the Lord's Prayer in Spanish, right? Carmen, do you want
Would you
to?
read that again, please, the last two verses?
The last two?
Lines.
The last two. The last line, the Santo, the Spanish line? The refrain in this piece is Santo, Santo, el Señor, y de universos Dios. Basically, it's part of the Lord's Prayer, right? And it's how would you say it? Santo, Santo is saintly is God, and from the universe. And God is from the universe. No, Señor is Father, right?
Our Father, God, art in heaven.
Yeah, basically, it's the translation of that. I'm being quite literal. So I've been playing with new forms of poetry as well, and there's a lot. The bop is something I like to play with lately. Okay, so does everybody have some paper and a pen? And if you don't, we'll get you some.
There are some pads on the table.
Are you guys still having fun? And also, if you need to move around to get a little bit of space to write, I'm a left-hander, so I'm that kid that always can go somewhere else. If you need some water or some more coffee, help yourself. But what I want to do is, I want to set some ground rules. This is what I normally do with my kids. So is everybody listening? Thank you. I know the majority of you guys in here are writers. I have some friends from growing up, and my sister here, who I know are writers. One of them is dabbling in writing as well. But I want to remind us that this is a safe space. Right now we're going to be a tribe of creators, of poets. Even you novelists, I'm going to ask that you try to write some poetry. Because you still use that word, the meter, to help write what you're writing in your dialogue. And so I want us to be a tribe of honor and respect right now. Some of you, with some of these prompts that I'm going to give you, may go to spaces that you may feel uncomfortable. I say take that risk, okay? And everyone, this is a respectful space. I will ask some of you to share. I'm not going to force you to share, unless no one wants to share. But I think that by sharing your work is how we can grow as writers and creators. So everybody together with me, we're one tribe, right? We're going to honor and respect the process, and we're going to be supportive of people who share. And if you hit a place where you feel uncomfortable, I always encourage the kids, raise your hand, and I'll come over, and we'll talk about what's wanting to come out or not wanting to come out. So today's session is called The Power of Words, and I'll let Kim's going to be my slide person. So today we're going to be talking about the power of words. And to me, there's sound around us all the time. Like if we just get quiet, the hum of the projector has its own rhythm and meter, right? There's meter around us everywhere. It starts with our heartbeat and with our breath. And I think often writers of all types, even journalists, forget to just slow down and be quiet, because that's when we allow the Creator to come to us and allow us to write. So I want to start with some basic definitions. Next slide, Ken. And it's just power. What is the word power? What does it mean? Power is the ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or quality. It is the capacity or the ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. I personally like bullet number 2. Any ideas on how we can do that as writers? Have the ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Remember, there's no wrong or right answer.
By eliciting emotion?
Say that louder.
By eliciting emotion?
Yes, to play with and elicit emotion. For example, that first point, go ahead.
Balance the emotion with truth.
All right, balance the emotion with truth. And I would say, you heard me say earlier that as a poet, poetry is not always about fact, right? It is about evoking the emotion, right? Eliciting emotion. And so it could be the truth of what our origin story is. But both of you, great explanations. So there are some definitions of power if you want to take some notes down. You don't have to, because I won't be grading you like I do my kids with smart arts. Now I want us to talk about what is poetry. If you go to the next slide. Poetry is one of the words that can scare people. But the basic definition of what poetry is. Did I skip a line?
There was a word.
Oh, really? Then my thing is more out of order. Okay, sorry. Let's do what word is. Who wants to read this definition for me? You guys are shy. Okay, Dan.
A single distinct, meaningful element of speech or writing used with others or sometimes alone to form a sentence and typically shown with a space on either side when written or printed.
Good. Anybody have questions on what a word is? Word is a single, distinct, meaningful element of speech or writing, used with often or sometimes alone to form a sentence and typically shown with space on either side when written or printed. And the reason I like to define word is I think, I believe in the oral tradition, right? I believe it's important, even if you are a novelist, even if you're writing historical fiction, to read your work aloud, because then you actually hear what the subconscious wants to say. I'm looking at Adele because our group was meeting last month, and she read her poem differently aloud than it was on paper. And to me, that's often a cue that your subconscious is telling you what you spoke is truly the word that you want on that piece of paper. And it's also, as an oral traditionalist, hearing someone say no, as opposed to no, has a lot of different evoking the emotion, right? One of them can be said, heard in anger, the other one cannot. Sometimes you can't do that with paper, but it can work. So now, let's see what poetry is. And I'm sorry, Kim, I'm like going to sustainability, so I printed both sides. So who would like to read the definition of what Oxford says poetry is as a noun? Volunteer? Rob?
Literature that evokes a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sound, and rhythm. Okay, very good. Poetry is literature that evokes a concentrated, imaginative awareness of experience or an emotional response through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sound, and rhythm. Did you guys hear some examples of that this morning?
Yes.
Okay, so, for example, which of the points I've shared this morning, you may not remember the note, you may just remember a line or the word, did that for you guys? Remember, no right or wrong. We're doing some sharing here.
The dust dances in the window.
Oh, that's awesome, yeah. The
Yeah.
dust dances in the window. Yeah, that's good. That's from the Leaving La Misa poem. What are some of the other images that evoked emotion?
Well, the title cafeteria food just immediately put you in the atmosphere that you needed to be in, took me back to elementary.
Okay,
So
good.
that one.
How about this side? I'm hearing a lot from this side, right here.
Whenever you were doing the poem about your mom, and you added the hand sound, the ink with the words.
I know. And if you grew up in a Mexican household, that was your alarm clock. Usually about 6 in the morning. But yeah. So sound also plays a role in the oral tradition or the poetic tradition. Someone else from this side.
Probably the one about what was it, the lamb and the blood and that you're part of. Oof, I got emotional.
Do you understand Spanish? Did you like the Spanish or the English?
Both.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
it got across.
That was a hard point to translate into English.
I thought you did really well.
Thank you.
You got across.
And I think that poem's called Tierra Tejana.
Yeah,
I was booed once in an elementary school in South Carolina.
in South Carolina.
It was. And they were like, we don't speak that language here.
Mexicans in South Carolina.
When I moved to South Carolina, there was only 1% Latino population. It's different now.
Yeah, there's only 3%.
It was a long time ago. It was in 1990s.
Now it's 3%.
Yeah, or 5. But it's also the magic of language. I purposely like to listen to writers from other places, like German poets can read it. You can Google names and you can hear them on YouTube, only because of the cadence and the rhythm and that meter and the sound of the language and what it elicits and evokes in you. So thank you for bringing that out. Okay, so we've talked about the power of word, power and word defined, and poetry defined. So here's what we're going to do today. Next slide. You don't have to take notes on this, but what I want us to do is we're going to have writing prompt around creating a sense of place. And then we're going to have a second exercise about creating a sense of emotion. So for examples of these, and you'll see these exercise bullet points again. So I want us to go to the next slide. I want to volunteer to read this is a very famous poem by Carlos Williams. Most kids see in middle school. Do I have a volunteer reader because my voice is about to go?
To read that?
Yeah, read that.
Sure. Okay, so it's the Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rain water beside the roast chicken.
Thank you, Adele. We have 4 verses in the poem called The Red Wheelbarrow. Does it follow a poetic form? It does, and not that it has to. I'm a free verse narrative poet. So The Red Wheelbarrow simply reads, so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rain water beside the white chickens. He's very concrete in his language, but what do you guys think when you heard this poem and when you're reading it? No right or wrong. What do you think is happening in this place? By the red wheelbarrow.
To me, it would be the importance of water, that so much depends upon it, the life of the chickens.
Yeah. And there's a wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater. So does that mean it's barely touched? Is the sprinkler like when we came in today? Or does it look glazed with rainwater? For me, I'm like, why is there rainwater in the wheelbarrow? Are the chickens going to be drowned? Are the chickens going to, are they thirsty? Or is this where it places? So I think part of the magic of words, right? Part of the power of your words is to create a painting for your reader. And then I think if you are a good writer and a good poet, you bring them into whatever this meaning of your poem may be, but it leaves room for the imagination. It doesn't have to be concrete. And that's why poems, in particular, we all can read the same poem, We can all write about the same object. What we create is going to have different meaning to myself. I'm looking at Carmen. So whatever Carmen writes, what she writes is going to touch me differently than it may be for Kim. And I think that's the magic of words, and that's the power that words have. We can elicit emotion just writing. And today, guys, we're just going to write. We're not going to edit. I'm going to ask you to leave the editor outside the door, actually outside, period, in the parking lot, because we're just going to create. And my goal is that you guys walk away with 2 or 3 pieces that you can go finish later on. So there's the red wheelbarrow. Also, there's lots of analysis on this poem that is about communism. And so if you're interested in that, you can go on. I want to read another poem that is creating a sense of place and or, I lost my sense of emotion. So this next poem is by one of my favorite poets, and I'm going to ask someone to read it. I discovered Cisneros when I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I am going to fess up that I'm a little biased. I tend to read more female poets than I do male poets. Who would like to share the words on the screen with everyone? Maybe a male voice? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This side's taking over, guys.
Okay, so it's dulzura. Make love to me in Spanish, not with that other tongue. I want you poquito on me, then tender like the language crooned to babies. I want to be that lullaby, mi bien, querido, that love. I want you inside the mouth of my heart, inside the heart of my wrists, the sweet meat of the mango and the gold that dangles from your ears and neck, from my ears and neck. Say my name, say it, the way it's supposed to be said. I want to know when I knew you even before I knew you. That's pretty.
Did I just hear like a, did someone just make that sound?
Yeah, it sounded like a dude. It was me.
I swear I heard a ooh.
Yeah.
So here we are. We all, Adele, thank you. Adele read this poem for us, and we all went someplace. It's not like the red wheelbarrow where we physically saw this thing sitting somewhere. We all saw this red wheelbarrow. This went somewhere deeper. This created a sense of emotion for us, a memory. And I love this poem. I love all things Sandra Cisneros. But it's called Dulzura, which means sweetness. Dulzura by Sandra Cisneros. Make love to me in Spanish, not with that other tongue. I want you juntito a mí, tender, like the language crooned to babies. I want to be that lullaby, mi buen querido, that loved. I want you inside the mouth of my heart, inside the heart of my wrist, the sweet mint of the mango, and the gold that dangles from my ears and neck. Say my name, say it, the way it's supposed to be said. I want to know that I knew you, even before I knew you. So, this time it was I don't use my given name because most people cannot pronounce Elvira correctly. So the difference between Elvira and Elvira. So this is sort of where this takes us. And then let's look at some of her images. And I want to point these out because I too write about mangoes a lot. I love mangoes. I love the feel of mangoes, the fleshiness of mangoes. But never until I saw this poem would I thought of the sweet meat of the mango and the gold that dangles from your ears and neck. I'm looking around to see if there's a woman or a man wearing a gold necklace, but she's equating the color and that feel of a mango to someone's golden earrings and golden necklace, right? It's also the mouth of my heart. You guys ever heard of that? Okay, yeah, how? I mean, how would you interpret that? What is the mouth of your heart?
Technically speaking, it would be the aorta.
exceptional. But
And remember, this is a safe space. This is like what happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas. What happens at Caprock Riders, stays at Caprock Riders. So yeah, technically, yeah. By physical definition, it is the earth.
yeah, the entrance into your heart, the word of, but spiritually speaking, you know, when we talk about somebody dying of heartbreak, you know, if they died of a broken heart, that imagery comes from, that phrase comes from the imagery of somebody's heart slowly dying or bursting. So if you want this person in the mouth of your heart, you want this person inside the part of your being that would die if they were there.
And Poetry Slam, where we go? Thank you. That's great. You had a comment?
No, I'll just click.
Yeah.
Karen?
I like your description. Mine was very vivid. I was a cardiac nurse, surgical nurse for 35 years, and I have literally held somebody's heart. And so, whether it was beating or whether it was still, that heart is still there. And when it is stopped for surgery, it is almost a relief when it starts beating again. And so that's what came to mind.
And I'm a little bit more visceral than all of that. To me, it's basically to get to my heart and make me fall in love with you, better be a darn good kisser. Basically, you know, I'm as primal as it gets sometimes, and that's what it is. I think Dan or wants someone to have something.
To me, it's like, okay, I want you inside the mouth of my heart. I was like, love is kind of a spiritual thing for me. And I was thinking, like in the Bible, we have Jesus in our heart, you know, God lives in our heart, and we want to put this person in this very private place in the heart that is reserved for almost beauty.
This poem is as graphically erotic as the poem Solomon.
Actually, yeah.
It's more.
It said this poem is as erotic as the Song of Solomon. And I will point out that the whole book of Psalms, and there are other chapters in the Bible that are poetic. So, go ahead.
Some of what I see there, I can't say in this crowd.
Okay, so afterwards we can break up.
Also,
One more comment.
the first part of the poem, she's talking about speaking to her, talking to her, using his other tongue, you know, which plays into the whole, you know, mouth of her heart. Speak to her heart. Speak into, like, it's like she doesn't want to just hear the words, she wants the words inside her. She wants his voice in her inside her being.
My late wife, Cora, was a foreigner. I kid her, but she was from the Philippines. Made love to me in Spanish. I made love to her in Tagalog.
What is your name?
My name is Jim.
Okay, Jim. I cannot wait to see what Jim writes first. And it is the magic of language. I have a poem where it's a love poem, and I use the line, I'm gonna, even if I say something like, I forget how I lead into it, but it's like, so when I say, when I whisper in your ear, la lluvia mata las uvas, all I'm really saying is the rain kills the grapes. But yet, because it's in Spanish, a language you don't know, it sounds romantic and sexy and lovely.
We did know it because, as you know, probably the Philippines have 400 years of Spanish domination. I asked her earlier in time, teach me to count your language. And she said, una, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. So much of her background is Spanish, and her dress was Spanish, her One of her first big dishes was adobo, which is Spanish. She makes her sauce all and stuff. So, but since her death, the Lord has given me a Howie girl. I call her a little farm girl. I think she's very trouble.
Did you just say Howie?
What?
Did you say Howie? Okay, I just want to make sure.
You guys are going to define that for me later. Go ahead. Holly?
Hallie? Hallie? Yeah, I'm a Hallie, she's a Filipino. But my current wife is also a Hallie. She knows that term.
I just know the name Tita.
Hallie is a South Pacific Island term for the sentence that they can be.
Okay.
It's not exactly pejorative, but it's.
It depends. Language means different things to a lot of people.
Yes.
So I'm excited we're having these conversations because you guys are learning and being influenced by the power of words. So Jim, thank you for sharing. And I've never thought about this poem like the Song of Solomon, so now I want to go do a read and compare it up. So what I want us to do right now is we're going to create a sense of place. So if you go to the next slide, take out your papers and pencils. Everybody take a deep breath. You may be thinking this is going to be scary if you are not a regular writer, but I am confident in you because I believe everyone, even second graders, are writers. All of us can write and all of us can tell stories. So, and I'm also a firm believer in what's called quick hit writing. I think I've introduced it in Greenville. And quick hit writing is simply, I don't give you a lot of time to write because then you stop and then the editor comes in and then you start scratching stuff out. And what I believe in is that as writers and poets, we just need to let it come out. And then we go back and we edit. And then we, I know my writing group, I talked about abiding image. You might write a whole paragraph or two right now. And then you can go back and find the abiding images and they're the things that pop out to you. So you guys ready to write a little bit? I'm actually looking for my clock here to set it. Set a timer. Not going to start it yet, because this is what we're going to do. And I want you guys to take out your paper now, and you're going to write this down for me. I want you to think about a place. This can be a place from your childhood. It can be a place that's important to you now, but it is a physical place. Maybe the backyard of your childhood home. But I want you to think of a place. I want to see all pencils on paper, writing a word or two. So you're going to jot down a place that means something to you. Now, after that, I want you to list 5 objects in that place. If it's your backyard, the tree, the cherry tree. 5 objects that define the place you're thinking of. Five objects. It could be the kid next door, it could be the dog. I've never written about my backyard, but obviously that's stuck in my brain right now. So you should have 5 objects about this place. If you have 3, I'm very proud of you. If you can get 5, I might give you a chocolate. What I want you to do next, and I will often find it helps to close your eyes, but I want you to list up to 5 smells that you remember of this place. What did this place smell like?
Are you wanting us to do something that's actually real world?
Real world or
okay.
whatever. If you're working on a novel and
I was doing something fantasy.
Okay, if you're doing fantasy, fine.
Okay.
This is your place. But I want you to think about 5 smells that distinguish this place. 5 smells. Remember, there's no right or wrong. So list 5 smells related to this place that you're thinking of. Maybe related to one of the objects. then the last list I want you to make is 5 people. I consider dogs and birds people too. They're spirits. So you can list 5 people. And remember, there is no right or wrong. This is going to be your sense of place. And actually, I think my cafeteria point started going off like this. So as you guys continue to write that last list, in review, we're creating a sense of place. I want you to think of a place that you remember in the past, current. I want you to list 5 objects in that place. I want you to remember 5 smells and then 5 people that you associate with this place. Like I tell the kids, if you have that done, please put your pen on your paper so I know who needs a little bit more time. And remember my password. Everybody still okay? I'm seeing some faces like, And I say often, as writers, we overthink things. We often don't just let the spirit, the muse, the moment take us. I'm going to ask that you allow that to happen. All right. Who remembers what type of writing I like to do in my classes? Quick hit. You guys ready to write quickly? Which means don't think about it too much. If you're stuck, raise your hand. I'll come over and help you. But I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to write something about this place. And know, if you've listed 5 things on all these areas, you have what's called a toolkit. You have words to go pull from. You guys ready? I'm going to hit the clock. 7 now. Yes, I'm ready. Okay, here we go. If you are stuck, raise your hand and I'll come over and help. We're about at 45-second mark. I'd like you kind of just to wrap up where you're at. You write a closing sentence. And that closing sentence is whatever it is to you. I didn't ask if I could take photographs, but I wish I had asked because y'all's expressions are adorable right now. I'm seeing one side with big smiles, another side where like, like throw in the towel. And I know this is tough, but know that you're in a safe space. Okay, we've got about 5 seconds left before the alarm goes off. There we go. How did that feel? Okay, I heard fun. What else? Hard? Anyone think it was hard? Okay, why did you think it was hard?
I just couldn't come up with anything.
That's okay. We got a couple more exercises to go. But and that happens sometimes. It's hard. And I know Peter, and I know what he does. And sometimes I'm going to tell you guys in 2 years, Peter's going to be writing wonderful poetry. He doesn't know it right now, but we all do. We all speak in poetry a lot. Okay, someone else. What did this feel like? Was it comfortable?
I liked it. Go ahead.
Or challenging?
I liked it because you have a set pace to work with. You've got words, and I can go back to that list and then just start a story. So I find that structure easy for me to get into. So
yeah, and in Smart Arts, I use list a lot. We're going to create a toolkit of lists with nouns, verbs, emotion, places, things. A tree, what happens to a tree? I ask the kids to write that, and then we write a poem about a tree, and what comes out is often a tree that's really a tribute to their mother, right? Because that's the second prompt that I'm going to get to. Okay, someone else. We were going around the room. I thought I saw. How was it for some of you guys?
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Okay.
I wasn't done.
You weren't done?
No.
That's okay. You can take it home and
I'm going
finish. You will finish.
Oh,
yeah, awesome. Okay, anyone else?
It's sad.
Easy but sad. Do y'all want to do some sharing now? I was wanting, because of time, I want to do at least a second exercise, and then I'm going to ask to share. Unless you want to share. Y'all want to hear some sharing right now? I think let's share, because then it gives you an idea that this can be easy but sad, or it can be easy or hard. But the thing is getting that out into me. What was your name? Susan? Everyone? Big poet snap for Susan, who is willing to share. Okay, what she developed in 5 minutes using this prompt.
Granddad is showing me how to hold a toggle worm by its tail as I push the hook into its soft, contracted body. Climbing onto the stacked hay bales. The scent of the warm willow strands, tangling with that of musky cows in the hot summer sun. Fingers sticky with earthworm juice, plums, and the mayo of my ham sandwich. Grandmother pumping water the well into the still sink.
Excited, or do you want me to finish reading it?
No, that's it.
Feedback. So anyone with some feedback? Thank you, Susan. That was beautiful, and I love the detail of the sticky juice, the plums, and the sandwich. Also, alliteration, right? A lot of sounds, which is a poetic mechanism. I'll come back next year and we'll do another workshop on mechanics. Okay. Thank you, Susan. Just see what can happen when you allow your mind just to go. When you already a prose poem that has detail, that has memory. More important, I saw you guys kind of go, oh, her grandfather, right? The evoking the emotion of this memory of going fishing with her grandfather and the sandwiches that grandma had made. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Any other feedback for Susan? Go ahead.
That was so touching, first of all, that what you described, what you wrote, what you shared, elicits that warm fuzzy within us that we carry with us that we sometimes don't share. Yet, it's always with us, and it can move you at different times, depending on your environment, your camaraderie. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And I'd say Susan did a great example. I did forewarn you guys that earlier this is a dome of honor and respect, and I may take you places. I've been doing this for 21 years, right? So, and when you do it with kids, gosh, it's phenomenal. But that was phenomenal because you're taking risks. You're going someplace where you're allowing yourself to go, and often as adults we don't allow ourselves to go there. I don't know. When was the last time you thought of your grandfather?
Every day.
Every day? Okay. But those specific, you created a place for us, that specific sequence.
That farm isn't us.
But thank you. You guys ready to try another prompt? Okay, we've created a sense of place. This time we're going to create a sense of emotion. Please, slide. Yeah. We're going to write about the sense of emotion. I'm going to try to remember who said, people will not remember what you say to them or what you've said to them. They will remember how you make them feel. Right? So feeling is emotion. Poetry, prose writing is about evoking the emotion. So like before, very quickly, I want you guys to think of a place, person, or an event. An event can be something like high school prom, someone's wedding. I want you to write down in one word right now, without thinking, first thing that pops into your head. Be it a person, place, or an event. Now, I want you to write 3 things on how you felt at that event. How did you feel being there? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you mad? Were you awkward? Did you walk in like I did today, like having fear sweat, as I call it? And then I lied and I didn't lie, but I'm like, I'm middle-aged hot flash, right? So how did you feel? List 3 objects that were there. And this object can be person, place, or thing. But list up to 3 objects that were there. And again, 3 distinct smells. For example, if it's a wedding, what do the flowers smell like? What the food smell like? What the place smell like? I've been going to a lot of barn weddings the last 10 years, that's all I'm going to say. So I smell a lot of wood and hay. I'm going to a barn wedding later this summer, aren't we, sis? So I want you to have a place, person, or an event. I want you to have a couple things around how you felt in this place. Some of the objects that were there. Objects can be, use adjectives, describe them, and distinct smells. And like before, we're going to write for about 5 minutes. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, pen and paper. Some of you are writing already, I can tell. More important thing is there's no right or wrong. This is your point of view. This event could be Comic-Con. How was it? Better? Easier? Harder? You guys look grumpy right now.
This one was harder.
Why was it harder?
Because it's asking for me to dig deeper than I'm really not willing to. It's easier for me to describe an emotion, tell you about emotion. But this is you're asking me to evoke it, to pull it out of you. And there's a part of me that says, I don't want to do that. Being defiant in a sense. But that could be an emotion.
That could be, defiance could be an emotion.
Yes.
But you just said a lot with what you said, so maybe that's what you write about. But I am going to point out that as writers, it is our job to show, not to tell, right? Not to tell what a feeling is, but to show. I saw a hand over here.
When you're doing this with kids, will you give them an example of an emotion so that maybe they can grab onto it?
Sometimes, often. Anger, then happiness. Sometimes I give them the food. All right, any other comments?
This is a puzzling drill for me because we're in a secular venue here. And this drives me back to a very, very spiritual time in my childhood.
I've done what as a teacher, as a teaching poet, I think that's where our truth lies. I've told you I'm a narrative poet. I write a lot about my childhood, which I hate to admit as, a grown woman, like I think I should be writing about love. She writes beautiful love poetry, because I'm pointing over there. I don't. But I think that that's part of my what I like. I like people to dig deep because it's in the beauty. You'll find beauty in that, Jen, right? So was it comfortable or was it uncomfortable?
I was very comfortable writing this, so I think I'm going to be uncomfortable sharing it in this venue.
Yeah, and you don't. No one has to share if you don't want to. Because I got 2 more points.
I've told this before many times in church and other, but this is church.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's a church. Wherever you go. Poetry to me is the Bible, guys. No matter whose work I'm reading, it is good poets take you there emotionally and spiritually. My friend Joel McCullough, who's in that, I don't know, but is in June 10, used to get, why do people let you do workshops? Why do you get paid to do workshops? Why do people ask you to come read? And I'm like, Joel, I'm not afraid to show my emotion. I'm not afraid to put it on the table because that is what poetry does. It connects people. Joel, I love him. He is a wonderful poet. He has the mechanics down, memorized like the back of his hand. And he works every day to allow that emotion, that thing that's going to connect me to Isabel, me to Carmen, me to Jim, me to Brendan. Bradley. I guess I'm right before dinner today. But it's that emotion, guys, that shared memory, that shared place, fishing, your grandfather. We all had grandfathers. We've all gone fishing. We suck at it, right? Poetry brings in commonality that allows us as human beings to connect. Not human beings, but human beings to connect. And I think that that's important. All right. Anyone want to share? Because we got to be out here in just 20 minutes. You want to share?
Sure.
Awesome. What's your name?
Keith.
Keith. All right. Everybody, let's give Keith the floor.
A dare from my cousin. Walk to the cemetery. Cemetery down the gravel road from my grandparents' house. Surrounded by their farm, the 12.5 graves containing none of our kin. Night descending fast, dusk a blanket covering the land, the first stars peeking above the surrounding pines. The smell of grass, of 10-year-old boy sweat, of pine needles giving way to the smell of fear and excitement. I walked to the cemetery surrounded by barbed wire. I approached the cinder blocks, steps wired into the fence. And that was when I ran out of time.
Recall. What images, what feelings, guys? Give Jim. Cemetery.
And this was not made up. This is fixed. This happened. We would dare ourselves at my grandparents' house to go down there, just walk down to it every time.
What else? Cemeteries.
The 10-year-old boys in sweat, for sure. Like,
It's good. Grandfathers, dead. The barbed wire around the cemetery.
It was funny because there was this cemetery in Hereford that didn't have a fence, and every time we go by, I asked my grandfather why there isn't a fence, and he said, why would there be? So that's what it made me think. And we get some barbed wire, go to Hereford, put up that fence.
That is, actually, that's quite funny. You know, they're not going to go anywhere, right?
And this wasn't their property. This wasn't my grandparents' property. It was just surrounded by their property.
You remind me, I brought a poem. I have a poem. I put it in, but I forgot to grab it. Okay, quickly. There's one more prompt I want to give you. We're not going to do it because we're out of time, which is what I want to pray with. Okay, we're not going to walk out into the garden today. But what I want you to do is when you get home, maybe tomorrow, the next day when the weather's better, I want you to write it down. I want you to go out into the garden. Or another prompt that I like to do a lot with adults is what I call a talisman. A talisman isn't a bad thing. I have our dad's crucifix, which it's a cross, right? It's about this big. It sits by my bedside. And that has become a talisman for me. When I'm worried, when I'm stressed out, when I'm in love, I grab that cross and it makes me feel warm. And so, be it either, number one, you go outside someplace that is sacred to you, or you find an object that's a talisman that means something. A good friend of mine, Amy Powell, has kept the ugliest little thing. She brought it to this workshop. But it is like a lighthouse this big. It's blue, it's chipped, and it was her grandmother's. And we did this exercise, same thing. List, what does this look like? Who are the people that connect you to this? You guys have the basic list, right? So Amy wrote this poem of her grandmother's lighthouse, which in the first class, like your grandfather piece, maybe she couldn't finish it. She asked me to finish reading it because she was crying. She's worked on that poem, and she finally got it published this year in a pretty big journal. I think she placed. And that's part of what I want you to go home with. You guys have started with good pieces today. The bones are there. I think the craft of any writer, whether you're a novelist, whether you're short fiction, flash fiction, or a furry. Aren't there a lot of furries in this group? Or writing poetry. The key is always to come back and keep making it better. To work on what I call the economics of language. So, any questions before? I'm going to do 2 points for you guys. Before, I don't know what's the next question.
The next one is,
What did you learn today? Okay, knowledge check. Because the school district makes me do this with the kids. Oh, shit. What did you guys learn today?
What a furry is.
You didn't learn it from me, you probably learned it from people. A furry is people who write about animals that have human characteristics, right?
Oh, stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay, I thought it was something else.
They also look like They are.
It is a genre. It's a writing genre. So what did you guys learn today? Okay, what's your name?
Lacey.
Lacey has the floor.
Well, no, don't do that.
I'm used to writing just creative
I didn't think about
nonfiction.
images.
I've never written poetry, and I don't read much poetry. And I'm a former therapist, so I'm used to, I get nervous talking about this. I'm used to observing emotion from an objective standpoint and writing about it from an objective standpoint. And poetry, it puts you in it, so you're writing from your emotion. It was just interesting. I've never thought about poetry like that. It's different than objectively observing things.
Thank you. Poetry for me, and I come from a school of poets in South Carolina, poetry is about evoking the emotion. I have some slam poems that are meant to piss you off, literally. I won't do them. I have some slam poems about domestic violence and how I personally feel about women and men who get abused by their partners. I don't do that work anymore because it upsets me now. I'm not in that place. So as a performance poet, I do that. What else did you guys learn today?
Bop, the bop.
The bop, yeah.
I like that.
Google it. There's so much more good examples. Mine was an attempt to do it, right? Me and Elena wanted to be cool and hip and different at this museum. It's called, they call it their Voices program, and they picked us to do that, so. Okay, what else? What did you guys learn today?
One of the things that I've learned today was I don't really list elements. Usually I just wait for inspiration. So it really helped me to kind of list, objects and people and emotions and write from that standpoint instead of just waiting for an idea.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jan and then Lynn and then back to you, Susan.
And actually, I was going to say the same thing that John said. When I've got a structure like that, there's a million places I could think of. And I could write a million poems now just off of the three structures you gave us, that would be very, very different from each other, but yet based on the same 5 things you've asked us to think about that could be easy enough to write down and then create the story with. I just like that structure, and I really feel like I could go with it now. So thank you for that.
I feel like such a proud teacher right now. I'm finding a list point. I'm gonna do a list point at the end. When?
Yes, we had a discussion about this before. I've written over 200 poems, and all of them rhyme. I never thought that you could write a poem that doesn't have to rhyme.
They don't have to rhyme.
That was new for me.
I could never rhyme as a kid. I took a couple of, I was at Tech when there were really great poets there. Right now, what is Walt's last name? He did it last year.
McDonald?
Walt McDonald, yeah, is renowned. And so I couldn't afford to do that, but I was always taught rhythm is important, you're not rhyming. And I've learned since that I am what's called, my rhyme is within the sentence, it's in the body of the poem, it's not at the end, which right now that term escapes me, because I've been talking for about 2 hours. All right, Susan.
You talking about the list, the list method. Ray Bradbury is famous for making lists, writing exercises that involve lists. He would do them for just everything. It helps keep your brain just kind of, your brain juices flowing. He would do lists even when he wasn't actively writing something. And sometimes those lists would then become stories later on. And so I learned about that when I took an online porter class earlier this year, and it has really helped me.
Yeah.
It really does help with the focus.
List is a great way to jump off the cliff, right? And if you have like 10 things listed in those categories I gave you, you can do sub-lists. Like if I want to write a poem to my lovely friend Sylvia, I can make a list of poems about Sylvia, then I can, let's say it's her eyes, right? I like her eyes, and then I can make sublists about her eyes and include emotion in there and that kind of stuff. So then that becomes, again, a toolkit for you to keep writing and growing with that book. Okay, you guys want me to do 3 little quick poems? Okay, one more comment. Yeah.
I'm wondering, since I mostly write novels, I'm wondering if, before I start a chapter, if I were to, knowing kind of what it's going to be about, if I were to write a small poem, whether that would give me more of the emotional center of the chapter.
It could. I have a poem about a barn where my writing group, the people in Quintet, challenged me, because they all write fiction as well. They challenged me to enter the South Carolina Fiction Contest, which is still held by the Post and Courier. And I said, I don't have anything. And Brian Slusher said, you have that beautiful poem about the barn. Why don't you write a story about the barn? So I allowed myself just to go. I did that. I made a list about the woman and the man who might be the owners of this barn. And it turned out being a short fiction story about miscarriage and how that is hard to overcome as a man and a woman. And it ended up working.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that might help, because I think a poem puts emotion in place and object in a very condensed format for you. Okay, can I do a few poems? John, you mentioned listing, right? So here's a list poem. I'm just going to read you it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, because I know what it's about. I know why I wrote this poem. It's called Slow Jazz Kiss. Your lips take mine slowly, pressing passion, hitting staccato, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat, late night trumpet, slow jazz kiss. Your energy for miles, making tongue swell, and while I swallow notes whole, stealing glances through my eyes, looking for Coltrane, slow jazz kiss. We're lost in passages of time, rhythm beating, Ella singing, your lips, baby, your lips take mine, and I am beating exchanges for my soul. My head getting dizzy as you get me Gillespie with the breath of Louis Armstrong's cheeks. I want to be Ipanema, lovely, tall, and making you go, ah, my lips pressing your lips with a slight tongue lick, and the bass nova swing of Antonio Carlos Jobim, the slow, sensual sound of Billy haunting when I'm not around, the blood circulating chaos once the Birdman's improvisation takes off the ground. I want to be the mouthpiece, awaiting your mouth locked in a jazz kiss. Poem is about a trumpet. I made a list of what I knew about trumpets and jazz, and that's what came out. Okay, that is an example of a list poem.
You're the artist who played jazz.
Sorry?
You're the jazz artist, very famous.
Yes.
Yeah, very famous. And also there is a poetry genre called blues poetry and jazz poetry. I'm just going to do, because it's Hispanic month, today's what, the 8th? September 15th through October 15th. I have good friends back in South Carolina. It's like, yeah, we didn't even get that right. What? Not even a whole month, right? It has to be the middle of the month to the middle of the month. Well, the significance of the 15th, guys, is that during that time period between September 15th and October 15th is when the majority of Latin American and Caribbean Latino countries gained their independence from, I will say it, the oppressors, right? So they gained freedom during that time of that period.
They gained their freedom from what?
From their colonizers, from Spain, from England, from the countries that came and colonized there. And where? The Netherlands. The Netherlands, right, the Netherlands. Okay, so just very quickly, 2 points. This is called Entwined English. The letter R still rolls off my tongue like a revved engine marked with utilities and accents of my mother tongue. Words whispered all sexy in your ear like La lluvia mata las uvas, which just means that the rain killed the grapes. I slip into church and a stop, yoke instead of joke, and struggle with consonant clusters, breakfast instead of breakfast. Mom and Dad did not allow accents. They lived silent, blended in, unseen. Once, in my ESOL class, I met a couple from Belarus. Both had been doctors. In broken English, she softly said, "Thing I miss is me babushka." Babushka, another tongue with short vowel sounds entwined in English. And then also, I'm going to say Halloween is not a holiday. I have tons of friends that come to and it may be to some people, but it's really not a holiday. But for me, the holiday is the Day of the Dead. It's also a religious holiday. And is it All Souls Day or All Saints Day? I forget. All Souls Day. So I was asked to write a poem commemorating the Day of the Dead. And this is what I came up with. It's called Retablo. And a retablo, if you saw Coco, the movie Coco, it's that little altar. A retablo itself basically is a box with threes, and you open it up and you have a picture of your deceased loved one, and then items that were significant of them in their life, right? So this is called retablo. Listen, the name of my people, Juan, Isabel, Lencha, Maria la India, in my bones they linger. In my makeshift retablos nestled in the niches of my home, a world between here and there, altered images of photos framed by the light of blessing candles. They do not want me to stand on their graves and weep. They are breeze, sun, wind, the thousands of leaves, maple, cedar, ginkgo, the countless drops of rain, the night stars. Thank you all. Thank you, Ken, for having me here. Happy to answer any questions you guys may have. And thank you for taking risks. Susan, thank you. Those beautiful things you shared, all of you. Miss Jen.
I just wanted to make a comment. I believe people come into my life for a reason, and I'm so grateful you are back in Lubbock because this has been a wonderful experience today. I've learned so much, and that I'm part of your poetry critique group. I'm learning so much, but I do appreciate you so very much. So
Thank you, Jan. Thanks.
That was so inspiring, and I know what you said. Like the next scene I write, I'm going to make the list to come because it definitely gives you a different kind of entry into your scene. Okay, who has time for celebrations? Who has something to celebrate? Yes, sir.
I entered my first fiction piece in a contest.
Did you? Excellent.
It's hard to keep it under 300 words and have a story.
Well, that is, I would say impossible for some of us. Yes, Susan, did you have something? Anybody else something to celebrate since last time? Yes, ma'am?
I won third place.
All right, well, y'all come back next month. Bring a buddy for free. Jody Thompson is going to be here, and we will see y'all next week. We got the book festival. Yes, sir.
Do y'all need somebody to sit at the booth at the book festival?
I'm sure we probably do. I'm not heading that up.
Mathis and I are doing it, but if you want to come and give us a break and once in a while, that would be fun.
Yeah, I'll come Saturday morning.
That'd be great. Yeah, give them a little break.
And come to lunch if you can.
Yes, who's going to yo-yo? Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for coming, and we will see y'all next month.
all right.
Oh, you know, it's almost 14 years. We've done that.